David is in court to claim £850 for a painting commission he lost out on after his friend used the image without his permission. Defendant Candy says David gave her permission to use the image, so therefore she owes nothing.
Now, do I have David here?
That's me.
Splendid. And now, Madam, you're Candy, is that right?
That's my name, darling, thank you.
Now, let's just be clear. The only person that calls me darling would be entitled to half of my property in the event of a divorce. Do you understand?
Copy that.
Splendid. Now, that's your alter ego, but because it's a legal dispute, and depending on when you had conversations, I also need, if there is one, your other name as well.
Yes, my other name is Aidan.
For the purpose of these proceedings, bearing in mind how you conduct your business, I'm going to call you Candy with your permission.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Now, David, you look very, very artistic. You are an artist, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
But you haven't always been a figurative artist. That's true to say, isn't it?
Because I was a performance artist.
Exactly. For a long time, you're a performance artist. And you knew David as a performance artist, didn't you?
We used to be friends.
What did David do?
David was a drag queen called Dusty O, and she was the most famous drag queen in London.
Now, let's have a look at your alter ego then. Now, that's you, I think, on one of your nights. The two of you are together. How long had you done it before you quit? How many years?
I've done it professionally since I was 18, and I finished when I was 47.
Wow, so the better part of 20 years or so. To run a drag night?
Yeah, I did. I ran a club called Tranny Shack, which was...
Tranny Shack?
Tranny Shack, which...
I'm mildly shocked. Given the glamour of drag, that you'd put all of these so-called trannies in a shack. Was it in a shack?
It was right in a shack.
It was actually in a very plush, beautiful West End venue.
And I suspect there was the most brilliant entertainment.
Yeah.
Various acts, all sorts of variety. I would have thought.
Stars from all over the world used to come.
How interesting. Now, Candy, when you came to this country, were you already working as a drag artist?
I did, yes.
And where you came from? Hungary?
From Hungary, yes.
And you wanted to get into the scene and get better and better, presumably.
Yes.
So you rather admired him, dusty as he was then. Now, how did you get to know him?
Well, I went to this club, Tranny Shack, and I met him here, and I approached him, tried to speak to him, but he was basically running away from me.
How was it that you eventually persuaded David to give you a job?
It took years.
It was in a competition that I used to run, a yearly competition.
What was the yearly competition called?
It was called Dusty O's Tranny Academy.
I'm not looking at you for any reason, Michelle. I presume you didn't enter. No.
Not that year.
Now, Candy, you entered this competition.
I did, yes.
Now, according to your reply, the reason you entered this competition was because, amongst other things, you especially wanted to get David, then Dusty's, attention. What did the competition involve?
Well, it was different tasks every week, and it was mostly about performing.
Now, in addition to being a drag artist, you also have other businesses, correct?
Yes.
And this is where we get into some difficulty. One of your other businesses, which is the subject actually of this dispute, is that you produce what I'm going to call artistic fashion.
Thank you.
Can you explain to me what it is? What do you do?
Okay, I started to design T-shirts, and for the designs I got inspired by the drag queens in the London and I would say in the UK scene, and it became quite wanted, I would say.
But the T-shirts, which I have to say are very nice, and they're certainly very artistic, are by and large, if not entirely, inspired by the LGBTQ community. And you've been quite successful at selling them, correct?
Yes.
Mainly directly. Now, they all look like either they're inspired by drag, or certainly you can see the dotted line between the exuberance of various features of the LGBTQ community and the design on those T-shirts. Do you see what I mean? Now, David, you are an artist, and I have to say, having seen some of your work, a legitimate one. You sell some of your work online, correct? that how you, by and large, sell your work?
Mainly through word of mouth.
And your reputation is terribly important, as is protecting, same for you, by the way, your intellectual property, your T-shirts and your art, right? Now, you, online, have various designs, including the design which is the subject of this dispute. Describe to me, if you can, the design. I haven't seen it.
It was a commissioned piece. Someone asked me to do a picture of a horse, and a horse isn't something that I would naturally paint. It's something that doesn't particularly interest me. I tried to add the essence of what I paint into the horse, how I do it, and yeah, so he asked me to paint a picture of a horse.
Well, this was your first commission.
It was.
Had these people, had you finished the work and been paid for the commission before you put it on your website?
He hadn't paid me anything.
What was the agreement?
The agreement initially was £850. He wanted quite a large picture, and I don't usually paint them that large, so I knew it would take me more time. I was fairly naive at that point as well. Now I would always ask for half up front before I started a commission.
Did you take a photograph of the artwork and put it on your website?
I put it on my Facebook profile.
In other words, anybody in the world who was a friend of yours, and whatever your settings were, but a friend of yours who could see your photographs would be entitled to see that piece of work.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Now, this is an important moment. Let's have a look at it, if we may.
It's not actually finished. Before you judge.
It's very seahorsey, actually. Is it in pastels?
No, it's in acrylics and spray acrylic. The next phase that it would have gone through, if it would have gone to completion, because that isn't completed, that's a
How long
third
did that take,
phase.
though? Sure.
About a week and a half.
And it's very dreamlike, and it's certainly very original. It's sort of dreamlike, yes?
Yeah. What I would have done next is it would have been photographed very high res, and then digitally enhanced and distorted, and then finally it's printed onto a hard acrylic background, so it has that extra shine.
It almost
as
looks
well.
like a sort of photograph of a piece of art.
Yeah.
Right, okay, understood. But it's a good original piece of work.
Thank you.
Did the person who you made that for, as an original commission, tell you that they liked the work before you put it on your website?
Yes.
It's very important. Why didn't you ask for payment at that stage from this third party who is not here?
Because it wasn't completed, because there was the other 2 stages to go. It was a work in progress.
Now, I have to say that to me again.
It was a work in progress.
Very important. Did you get a written contract between you and the person who
No.
you had this commission with?
No.
It's a very big shame. Now, Candy, this is where things get difficult. At some point, you had a conversation with David. There's no dispute that there was a conversation. It's about what took place. So I'm going to ask you first, what discussion did you have with David about putting something on one of your T-shirts? What did you say?
Well, we were talking about my T-shirts. We were talking about his pictures as well, and I just asked.
You say
if
his
I could-
pictures, you mean his paintings?
Yes.
Where would you have seen his paintings?
I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen them, a couple of times.
Understood. Now, language here is really important. Did you say, I'd like to use one of these pictures on my T-shirts?
Yes, I would like to use one of your pictures on my T-shirt, but he thought.
Don't tell me what he
All
thought.
right.
You can't tell me that. Only
Okay.
he can.
All right.
Now, after you'd said that to him, did you specify what painting you'd like to put
No.
on one of your T-shirts? Once you decided it and you'd taken the image, where did you get the image from? From Facebook?
On Facebook, yeah.
Understood. Did you telephone Dave and specify what painting you were going to use?
No, I didn't.
Did you send him an email or put anything in writing about what image you were going to use?
No, I haven't. No.
Now, David, what about you? Is that correct? Did she say, I'd like to take one of your photographs and put it on a T-shirt?
Yes. She said pictures.
She said pictures?
Yeah, she said pictures. But that's not a picture, it's a painting.
Well, that's a very difficult legal issue to decide. What did you understand she meant by the word picture?
I understood that judging by what I'd seen previously, which was pictures of well-known London drag queens and UK drag queens, that it would be a picture of my old alter ego, Dusty O, and I would have gladly, and did gladly, give her permission to do that and to make as much money out of it as she wanted to make.
You certainly didn't think she was going to take a photograph and use one of the paintings on the T-shirt.
No.
Understood. Well, why didn't you email her or put in writing? When you say picture, I have no problem with you using my Dusty alter ego on any of your T-shirts. Why not write that to her?
I should have done.
Coming next.
How did you first find out that this had happened?
I first found out when the guy who commissioned it cancelled the commission.
Well, it's not fun.
No.
Sponsored by
In court to claim £850 for a painting commission he lost out on after his friend used the image without his permission. Defendant Candy says David gave her permission to use the image, so therefore she owes nothing.
If Candy, she'd taken a particularly good photograph, by the way, are there photographs of David as Dusty on his Facebook page?
Yes.
What would have happened if she'd taken one of those photographs, and who knows, it could have been entirely iconic and she'd made millions from it? You'd be entitled to the money.
She would have been entitled to the money.
You're absolutely right. And you'd have been happy with that.
I would have been happy with
That's
that. yeah.
quite generous.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're rather generous,
Totally.
to say the very least. Now, that was a big mistake. Now, you made a T-shirt with this painting on it. Can I see a photograph of it?
Of course.
And I think as well, would you mind taking the T-shirt? I think we've got that here as well. Both, please.
Yeah,
Try not,
sure.
You don't have to put it on. Thank you. Actually, would you mind holding it up, Michelle? So I can see. Now, it looks a bit different there. It's rather darker. Wouldn't you agree with me, David?
Very much.
But it is unmistakably the same image. How did you first find out that this had happened?
I first found out when the guy who commissioned it cancelled the commission.
Well, it's not funny.
No, it wasn't.
And you're
funny.
here today,
It
just to
wasn't.
be clear, suing Candy for £850, which was the price of the commission. What did the person who cancelled the commission say to you?
I don't want my painting on T-shirts all over London.
Although there's no contract between you and him.
No.
Neither have I got anything except your word from him to say that that's the reason he decided not to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more, the painting, as you rightly described, isn't finished
No.
in any event. So the reality is, as of today, you couldn't ask him for that money anyway, even if you wanted to. Correct?
Correct.
So how am I supposed to give you your £850 at this stage?
Because it would have been finished and he would have had it had he been... Had Candy not done what she did, basically. He would have been very... Because he liked it.
I
He
know
wanted
it's-
me to finish it. But
Well, I know it's not necessarily apposite in the course of these proceedings, but, you know, if my mother had different equipment, she'd be my father. You understand? If. But you've got a big problem here, because there's no paper between you and anybody.
No, no.
Well, you say no in that slightly artistic way. But here's the reality. This is good quality work against a backdrop of being a notorious and successful performance artist. There are all sorts of legal abuses that can take place here unless you've got something written down. Now, Candy, you made these T-shirts. Did you sell them?
Yes, I have, yeah.
How many did you sell?
I sold around 52.
And I think, how much were they a piece?
At the time, they were 28, I think.
£28,
Yeah.
which is the average price of these bespoke T-shirts. Do you know what the costs were to make them in total?
Yeah, £20.
So that's, if they're 52 times 28, the profit there is about £416.
Yeah, that's correct.
When you found out this had happened, what did you say to Candy?
I didn't say too much about it, but obviously underneath, I was always a little bit resentful because £850 is a lot of money, and I was just moving into a new career, and it had taken me a week and a half to get it to the point where I'd got it.
And presumably, when you invest your artistic and intellectual capital, your creative spirit into something like that, it's personal to you, right?
It's very personal, but also that week and a half that it took was, I lost a week and a half's income from any other source of, work. So it actually bit me in the pocket as well as in the heart.
I understand that. However, we're in a strange situation here because I think there's a bigger issue. Whose copyright is that? Who owns that painting and the right to reproduce it, would you say?
Me.
Well, before you said you were prepared for Candy to use your image as Dusty. Why is this different?
Because the image of Dusty, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. You only have to Google my name and literally hundreds come up. When I was working, people used to take my photograph all the time, and I always felt that it was something that, it was my art, but it was something that I was giving, and I didn't want payment for that.
Now, you need to be aware of this. Again, it's very important learning. Of those images that you've used on your ordinary t-shirts, not this one, have you always sought permission from the person whose image you're using to put them on the clothing?
Yes.
And how would you go about getting that permission? What would you need to do?
Most of those artworks, they came because the drag queens approached me. They wanted it,
good
so I
publicity
drawn
for
it
them.
for them. Yes.
So when they say they wanted it, would they put it in an email to you?
Mostly on Facebook messages, but yes.
Point is, there's some trail, there's
Yeah.
some communication which you
Yes,
can rely
that's
upon.
true.
In the event they come along and they say, that Candy's just nicked my image, you could wave about and say, no, I'm sorry, you came to ask me. And you get to keep all of the profit in respect of those other t-shirts, correct?
Yes.
See, the point is, in law, if I find that you own the copyright, as opposed to her, you can claim damages. You have not brought this case in that way. Your claim is based upon what I said before, the loss of the commission. Would you like to amend your claim now, yes or no?
Yes.
Now, who do you say owns that painting, you or him?
He owns the painting.
Why should I not grant him damages then? What do you say is material in your defence?
I asked his permission. He said yes. I believe it was a miscommunication, and honestly, I tried to talk to him. I messaged him a couple of times.
You got cross, am I right about this, and stopped speaking to
Yeah.
her? Well, you're laughing. I want to know how cross you got. That's important to your state of mind here.
Yeah, I was kind of hurt, but also because at that point I was really poor. I'd gone from living in a world where had quite a lot to another world, another way of life where I'd got very little. The commission was literally like a month's money for me. That would have been a month's lifesaver at a very difficult time. So rather than confront Candy, because as I've said before, I like Candy,
Sure.
and she's a lovely person, rather than make a bad situation worse, I decided to ignore it.
Now, it's a difficult one. Except this. David, that is your work. I'm entirely satisfied of it. Candy, you describe this case as a miscommunication. However, all of your work on your website are images of the LGBTQ community. This image represents quite literally a sea change from the rest of those photographs that you put on t-shirts. Bearing in mind that was the case, when you said to David, I want to use your image, it was incumbent on you to take special care to explain that what you really meant by that was that you were going to use his horse painting. Because you didn't do that, I'm entirely sure that David, in his mind, did not give you permission to recreate that image on the t-shirt. And therefore, it's his copyright, and you're in breach of that copyright. Question is, what do I do about it? Well, David, your claim for the loss of the commission I have to dismiss. What I can do, however, and what I must do in law, is determine what profit here has been made as a result of the work that you did. Total profit is £416. Do you undertake to me that there will be no further breach of this copyright and you will not use that image or indeed any other image of David's paintings without his further consent?
Yes, Your Honour.
I'm grateful. That's the award of this court. £416.
David was awarded £416 by the court. Let's find out how both parties felt about the judge's ruling.
I didn't come here to make Candy suffer. I just wanted her to acknowledge that what she did was a bit naughty.
Yeah, I'm happy that the whole thing is resolved now.
For me, that's it, done. We had a problem, now it's solved. It was a really interesting experience to hear what the judge had got to say, and he spoke a lot of sense, obviously, and now I know, and I won't be making that mistake again.
To be honest, like this case is different because it's a different artwork, and I used his painting on the T-shirt, so I really should have asked. And if there's anything in the future, I just want to ask you to just sit down with me and let's talk about it.
And not hide.
And not to hide, yeah.
Coming next.
Now, who drafted this partnership?